Both of everyone, you guys could hear me and see me?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, great. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to do Parashat Shelach. Okay, so let me just find it. Just a second. Okay. So we are at the beginning of Parashat Shelach Lecha, and we're going to go ahead and read a few of the psukim. This is going to be another case where we need to read several psukim to get the context. Although the story is very, very well known, we still need to just because we're going to be looking at some specific things that the Midrash talks about. Okay, so Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, everyone with us? Okay. Send for yourself men to scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelite people. Send one man from each of their ancestral tribes, each one a chieftain among them. Pasuk Gimel. So Moshe, by Hashem's command, sent them out from the wilderness of Paran, all the men being leaders of the Israelites. Anyone over there want to read verse 3? I just want to compare it because this is the first verse we're really going to be talking about.
So Moses sent them forth from the wilderness of Paran at Hashem's command. They were all distinguished men, heads of the children of Israel were they. Okay,
so in Hebrew, the phrase is Kulam Anashim Rashei Bnei Israel Hema. Actually, your translation, the actual translation over here is a little bit better, but even it, of course, is not a literal translation. Because if we translate it literally, it would say like this, Kulam Anashim Rashei Bnei Israel Hema. We would translate it as they were all people, or we might translate it as men, but literally it would be they are all people, heads of the tribes of Israel, they were. What strikes us as strange about this verse? About the whole verse?
Well, if you just read Hebrew, Anashei, like, of course they were people.
Very good.
Not animals.
The phrase Anashim is completely unnecessary. Right? You just told me at the end of the previous verse, right? Send one man from each of their ancestral tribes, each one of the one a chieftain among them, and then you should just go on to say, Moshe sent them from the wilderness of Paran according to the word of Hashem. They were all heads of the tribes of Israel. Right? In the previous verse, it says each tribe should have one representative. And in this verse, we find out that the people that were chosen weren't just random individuals to represent the tribes. Rather, each tribe sent the head of the tribe. But the word Anashim, they were all men, heads of the tribes of Israel. It doesn't even say men, it says people. Literally, it actually should be people, but contextually it obviously means men. But it could just as easily be just gender neutral as people. But either way, that phrase is completely unnecessary. Any other questions about the verse? That's really the main question. But if anyone notices anything else, then anyone want to take a shot at trying to answer the question?
From the beginning, we're reading that Hashem talks to Moses and he says, if you want, just send some people. But here, Al-Pi Adonai. It's like God.
Excellent. Excellent. And the Midrash will actually talk about this a little bit, but it's not going to, meaning the question you bring up is a very, very well-known and difficult question, which is, from the opening statement, it seems like the initiative, it seems ambiguous. God is saying to Moshe, send them. On the other hand, it says, send for yourself. Right? And later on in the Torah, it seems in other places we also see it seems very ambiguous as far as whose initiative it is. And in verse 3, it says that this is according to the word of Hashem. So it seems this is very much Hashem's. So the Midrash will talk about that. Okay, so but that question also. So we have two questions at least so far. We're going to see some more verses later on, but that's what we're going to start with. Okay, anyone want to take a shot at answering the question about what the word anashim, men, people, is doing in there? Right, as Alex said, what did we think that they chose? Animals to go instead of as the representatives. Why is the word people necessary there? Okay, let's just jump ahead into the Midrash. Okay, so the Midrash says as following. Just a second. Okay. All right, almost. I'm having some technical difficulties here. Okay, and I'm giving a general disclaimer now that this class will inevitably get a little political. So, because it's one of these midrashim that you can't not. Okay, says the Midrash. That is what the verse says in Mishlei. He who sends a message by the hand of a fool. So again, we've seen this many times. We're basically seeing this now every week almost. That the Midrash will use a verse from one location in the Torah or in Tanakh to explain a different verse. So the opening of the Midrash seems to be discussing a verse from Mishlei that says, "He who sends a message by the hand of a fool." So the Midrash is saying what it talks about over here in the story of the Meraglim, of the spies. This is what Mishlei was talking about when it says, "He who sends a message by the hand of a fool." So the Midrash is basically claiming that who are the fools?
Moshe.
No, Moshe sent fools.
By the hand of fool.
Right. He who sends a message by the hand of a fool. So Moshe sent the Meraglim, meaning that they were fools. He sent fools. So the Midrash asks, but were the spies fools? The truth is that I really debated how to translate the word. In Hebrew, in the Midrash, the word that appears is the word ksil. Ksil can be used in a variety of contexts. Because ksil, its primary use is someone who is unintelligent. Okay, a combination of an unintelligent and I guess the more common use of the word fool. But the word fool also usually denotes some level of low intelligence. So that's the best I can come up with. But ksil is a richer word than fool, because fool also has a connotation of someone who's silly, someone who's like a clown a little bit. But that's not the context of a ksil. Ksil is someone who's unintelligent, who's maybe a little bit stupid. Again, more of an intelligence. It's very hard to translate. The best I could find is fool. But were the spies what?
Incompetent.
Could be also incompetent. But it would be. But I agree. But it would be an incompetence that's due to intelligence. So the Midrash goes on to say, but were the spies fools? Isn't it true that it already says, send for yourself people? Right, that's our verse. And anywhere where it states the word people, again in Hebrew, anashim, they are righteous people. And the Midrash is going to bring three proofs that when the Torah or Tanakh uses this form of anashim, when it's unnecessary, the connotation is one of people who are righteous, wise, some kind of a people of great status. As it says, And Moshe said to Yeshua, choose people and go out to fight Amalek. Right? Choose people, meaning don't just choose anyone. Choose people who can fight, people who can fight against Amalek. So these are going to be people of superior people of significant status. And similarly, it says, and the man in the days of Shaul. Oh, sorry, this got cut off. I didn't finish translating it. Let's continue to the next one. And similarly, it says, this is when Hannah, the mother of Shmuel, when she was barren and she comes to the Mishkan, to the tabernacle, and prays to Hashem to give her a son, she says, and give your son seed of people. Okay? Meaning give me children, but the term she uses, she isn't asking just for random children. She's not asking just to have seed, to have children, to have offspring. She's asking to have a certain type, a high quality, someone of important stature, someone who is righteous. So she uses the term Zera Anashim. Okay? People like this, so then the Midrash goes on to say, people like this you call fools? Meaning the Midrash is proving from 3 different locations, and I apologize for the fact that one of them got messed up, from 3 different locations that the use of anashim when it isn't necessary, or in general the use of anashim to describe a certain type of person, is describing someone who is righteous, someone who has significant character traits. So this is a perfect example in our pasuk where the word anashim is not necessary. So that's why I said the ArtScroll translation actually is based on this midrash, right? If someone could please read verse 3 again, your translation. Someone want to go ahead?
Moses sent them forth from the wilderness of Paran at Hashem's command. They were all distinguished men, the heads of the children of Israel were they.
Right. They were all distinguished men. Now the word distinguished does not appear in the pasuk. They were all men, heads of tribes of Israel. You could just say they were all heads of tribes of Israel. You know, this might not sound very politically correct, but we wouldn't have thought at any point that the women who were the heads of the tribe, especially since it's about to tell us the names.
So why is it not translated like this in the beginning of the verse?
Meaning?
Like if I look at the translation of verse 2, send forth men, if you please, and let them spy out the land of Canaan. I give the children of Israel one man, each from his father's tribe.
So he's saying, so you're asking me why the ArtScroll translation isn't consistent, because it's a translation and it's going to be a hit and miss, and even when it's a hit, it's hitting only based on that. The way ArtScroll translates verse 3 is based on this midrash.
Right.
So it's choosing a very specific interpretation, which happens to fit with what we're doing right now, but it is by no means what the verse is actually saying. It's what the Midrash understands and explains based on on the pasuk. Okay, so the Midrash asks, these people like this you call fools? So the Midrash answers, these were called fools because they slandered the land. As it says in Mishlei, he who speaks forth slander is a fool. This is a very, very interesting Midrash. Midrash continues, even so, they were great men, and they made themselves to be fools. As Moshe said about them in Dvarim, when he came and he talked about this period, for they are a generation of reversing. In Hebrew, it's dol tahapuchot. Lahafoch something is to turn something upside down. Okay, something that initially is one way and then is turned upside down is something, just like we say this in Purim, right? V'nahafochu. That things were reversed, but it's not just reversed going forward versus going backwards. It's upside down. Things being one way and then they turn upside down on their head. Okay, so that's actually the word that the Midrash uses. For they are a generation of reversing, children with no loyalty in them. The Midrash goes on to explain, they were chosen meaning these people, were chosen from among all of Israel, and according to Hashem's word and Moshe's word, as it is, meaning they were chosen not randomly. Meaning Hashem gave them a seal of approval as the representatives. Moshe gave them the seal of approval as representatives, according to Hashem's word and Moshe's word, as it is written. I approved of the plan, and so I selected 12 of your men, one from each tribe. This is Moshe speaking. I approved of the plan, and I selected 12 of the men. From this we see that they were righteous in the eyes of Moshe and the congregation. Furthermore, Moshe did not want to send them on his own opinion until he consulted the Holy One, blessed be He, on each and every one of them. So-and-so from tribe so-and-so. And he told him, and he, Hashem, told him, they are worthy. And from where do we know that Hashem said that they were worthy? As it says in our verse, as you pointed out, Galina, and Moshe sent them from the wilderness of Paran according to the word of Hashem. The Midrash understands it not about the general mission. The Midrash understands it as that the individuals, each one was a man of the head of his tribe, and each one went according to Hashem's word. Okay? And at the end of the 40 days, they turned over, right? V'nafochu, did this entire trouble and caused that generation to be inflicted with that plague, meaning of all of them dying in the desert. As it says, they are a generation of reversing. And they were found to be righteous, and they turned over. That is why it says, send forth people. Okay. So, do we have an answer to our two questions? The first question was, why does the verse emphasize the fact that these are people of stature? Or when actually, no, the question is, why does it add in this extra word that they were people, the heads of their tribes? So, do we have an answer from the Midrash? Yes. What is the answer that we're given? Why does it add in this word people? What?
They were fools.
That's what the Midrash ends up saying afterwards. But if you go to the last sentence of the Midrash, and as it says there, just saying that they were found to be righteous, and they turned over. That is why it says, "Send forth people." What you're talking about, you're saying what the Midrash says about, meaning what? Let's take it step by step. What is the Torah trying to say when it adds in the word that they were people, heads of the tribes? What is it trying to say about them? It's trying to say that they were men of stature. They were righteous people. The Midrash takes it as then the Midrash says, okay, now that we know that they were righteous people, so much so that the people recognize them as being righteous, Moshe recognized them as being righteous, and Hashem recognized them, identified them as being righteous, and said that they are worthy to go. So then the Midrash is answering the next obvious question. If the Torah goes to such a great lengths to tell us that these are people of stature and that they are righteous, what is the obvious question, considering we know how the story continues?
First of all, there's two questions. The obvious question, why they did what they did. But
right.
Before, it's written that children with no loyalty. Loyalty to what? Loyalty to Eretz Israel? They still don't know what is Eretz Israel. What kind of loyalty they expect to have to Eretz Israel? It's loyalty to Hashem.
Right. I agree. I think the simple answer would be a loyalty to Hashem, which is to come and say that the place that God said that we are going to go in, that He's going to give us, and that He says is a good land, they come in and say it's not a good land, and we can't. We stand no chance. I agree. The simple explanation would be a loyalty to Hashem, and to.
But they. but they're going to check the land.
Yes.
And they just give honestly what they see.
Okay. So let's.
Okay, not honestly, but.
Wait. I agree. You're jumping ahead. We'll get there in a moment. When we go to the second Midrash, that's exactly the discussion we're going to have. So let's hold on there for a second. But the first thing you said, I agree, is the obvious question that the Midrash doesn't even bother asking. It just starts answering it, which is, okay, the reason it says Anashim is to tell us that these were not just a bunch of Joe Schmoes. Because if these were Joe Schmoes, then we wouldn't come and complain. We wouldn't be so disappointed with them, and we wouldn't have such a complaint against them. You sent a bunch of Joe Schmoes. Don't be surprised when you come back and hear all these disturbing things. The most important people were sent, the people that were righteous, the people that could be trusted, the people that had understanding of what was going on. And then the obvious question that the Midrash, it's so obvious to the Midrash, it doesn't even bother asking it. It says, so how could these righteous people do what they did? Which is to talk slander against the land of Israel and to cause such a horrible disaster in the Jewish people. And what does the Midrash say? How does the Midrash answer that question? What is it? Why is it that they could do such a thing? Does it say?
They turned over. They reversed.
Yes, but why? Yeah, right. Meaning they were in one state of mind of being righteous, and then they turned into fools.
Because they are not professional spies.
I'm asking what does the Midrash say? So look in the second paragraph. These were called fools because they slandered the land. As it says, he who speaks for slander is a fool. And look what the Midrash says, a very interesting statement. Even so, they were great men, and they made themselves to be fools. It's an interesting statement. Okay.
Why?
Okay, good. That's the question that this Midrash does not answer, and the next Midrash will. But it's a very, very important, it's very subtle. They made themselves to be fools. Yes?
So I'm understanding this a little bit differently. In Hebrew, it doesn't say the word distinguished. It just says men.
Correct.
So you didn't need that phrase at all. They could have just said, and they sent forward the heads of the children of Israel, and you know that they're the leaders, they're righteous, etc. But the fact that it says men, it shows that these righteous people turned and became like regular people, like Joe Schmo. That's the purpose of the word men. So it's slightly different. How I'm understanding it.
Wait, say that again. You're saying that if without the word man, then we would know that they were. Why? No, you could.
Righteous people.
No. Why? No. How would you know that they were righteous? They are.
Because it's the head of the children of Israel. Normally, the head of the children of Israel are normally righteous and they're leaders. They set the proper example. But the fact that they add the word men means they turned into, that like they became like everybody else, like Joe Schmo.
I hear what you're saying. I have difficulty with it especially because we see the Midrash, and maybe that's the reason the Midrash feels such a need to bring three different sources in order to prove this theory, which is when the word men is added in when it is not needed, it's trying to say these are not regular men. These are men of greater stature. So when Hannah is asking for a child, for offspring, she doesn't just say, give me seed, which is the word she uses for, in Hebrew it sounds a little bit better than it does in English, but zera. Zera is also seed, but also means offspring. Right, like we say, zari v'zera zari me'ata ve'ad olam. It's a word that's used to talk about. It means both seed but also offspring.
Like the fruit of your tree. Right?
Yes, exactly. So in Hebrew, were you there the whole time?
No, I just arrived.
Oh, okay.
The last Sheva Bracha, and we were running late.
Oh yes,
so
I saw the email. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to write back. Mazal tov.
No problem. Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you.
So it doesn't sound as strange in Hebrew as it might in English. But when Chana is asking for a child, she could have just said, "Give me zera, give me seed." But she says, "Give me the seed of men." Again, men here not being the gender. She uses the word anashim. I want a specific type of child. I want a child who will be like the men. Again, not the men as in just men who are not women. The great, meaning this is the proof. The verse uses, the Midrash uses, one of three proofs that when that word is used as an addition to what we know we're talking about people, and that word is added to come and say, people of stature, people of significance, people who are righteous. So before we continue to the next Midrash, which I think is even more interesting, obviously the big question we have here is, okay, they chose to be fools. What does that mean? They sat around there and they said, okay, should we be wise or should we be fools? I choose to be a fool. Something here is strange. What does that mean? What does it mean that they chose to be fools? What are the choices that they make? That's what we're going to see in the next Midrash. But I think there's a very subtle but extremely, I think it's very simple, but I think it deserves reiteration. And
can I ask something?
Yeah. Wait. Let me just finish this thought. And I think this is a very, very relevant. And again, I said there's going to be some political statements in here. A person can be wise, smart, and even a good guy, a good person, morally, a righteous person. But even a person like that, it is possible for someone to be wise, intelligent, and a good person, but when it comes to Israel, they become fools. It's possible. And we have a precedent for it. Meaning, the Midrash is saying something amazing. It says, it is very important for the Torah to establish that the people who committed this sin and who dragged the Jewish people to 40 years of wandering the desert, they actually were righteous people. You would think that the Midrash would instinctively want to downplay their character, to come and say, oh, these guys, there was always something wrong with them. But it doesn't. The Midrash understands that the Torah is trying to play up these people. First of all, because I guess they were people of stature. But the Midrash is going to great lengths to say, before they went to Israel, they were righteous, intelligent, wise, etc., that everyone signed off on. The people, Moshe, and Hashem said that they were worthy to represent the Jewish people, to go to the land of Israel and come back and report, etc., etc. And it's almost saying that there is a danger, specifically maybe specifically, for people who are wise and intelligent and are good and righteous. The emphasis here is righteous. It is possible, maybe even sometimes more than just possible, that people who are more righteous and more intelligent maybe will find themselves, when it comes to Israel, turn into complete fools and slander and cause tremendous damage to the Jewish people. I said I was going to get political. I'm not going to take it to the next step. You do your own applications of what I think this Midrash can. But it's interesting that it doesn't try to the Midrash is not trying to slander these people or their character. Something happened to them that made them turn upside down.
But still, the question is why.
Okay, for that we need.
What happened? I don't know. I think maybe it's just they're afraid of responsibility.
Wait. So we got to be careful. We got to be careful and not to take things we know from other places,
right,
and put them into.
That's the same.
It could you're right that there are. Those are some. That is one of the most classic explanations, which I love that explanation. I love that explanation. It speaks very well to my religious Zionist activist, upbringing and the background. So I very much personally identify with that answer. Okay? But we have another Midrash. Now, before we go and we read the second Midrash...
Sorry, Rabbi, I just want to clarify. Are we saying in answer to that question that the thought that they had a hidden agenda and when they went, they had an intent that was negative to start? That's another interpretation, but not what this Midrash is.
Not at all. This Midrash is at odds. Is at complete odds with that explanation, because this Midrash is going to great lengths to come and say they were righteous. Everyone signed off on them and how worthy they were. No, because if this Midrash accepted the explanation that there was a hidden agenda, they'd say they weren't righteous. They had a hidden agenda. They went there with the hope of it being bad. They went with the plan to come back and, because they wanted to stay important, etc., etc. This Midrash does not take the easy way out of saying, everyone was fooled to think that these guys were good guys. They were actually bad guys. No. Okay. Now we have to go back to the verses. And we're going to verse 18, 19, 20. Okay, after the Torah goes on and tells us each one's name and what tribe he's from, it goes in and we hear the mission that they're given from Moshe, their instructions. Okay, says verse 18. Let's start with verse 17. Just to get us into we're going to be asking questions about verse 18, 19, and 20. Verse 17, when Moshe sent them to scout the land of Canaan, he said to them, go up there into the Negev and into the hills, into the hill country. Sorry, just a second. Yeah. And see the land, what it is. Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak, few or many? Is the land in which they dwell good or bad? Are the towns they live in open or fortified? And what is the land? Rich, fat or skinny or
fertile.
Okay, we'll say fertile. Fertile or lean. Is it wooded or not? And take pains to bring back some of the fruits of the land. Questions about 18, 19, 20.
Yeah, there is a problem from the beginning.
Yes.
If you send people, it means that you don't trust God. All these things that you have to check, it doesn't matter if God tells you just go to this land, conquer it, and this is your land. Why you ask them how is the land and people? Who cares? You're supposed to go and to do what God tells you to do.
Okay, so I'm going to break your question down into two parts. Okay, to two questions. One is why are you even going? Shouldn't you just trust God that you're going to go and it'll be fine? Right? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, remember, according to the simple understanding, God told Moshe to send them to scout the land. So if you're told to scout the land,
yeah, but he tells shlach lecha.
Go for yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it shows that he has some kind of to go, not to go.
Okay, right. As we said, there seems to be some kind of ambivalence. But in our Midrash, the first Midrash that we saw, there's no ambivalence. Hashem said, yeah, these guys are worthy.
So
Wait. But there's another part to your question, which is, why are you looking to see if the people are strong or not, or if the cities are fortified or not? You can say, God said, go and tour the land. God didn't say what he should look for. He should go see that the land is wonderful. Come back, say the land is wonderful. Why are you trying to see, how strong the people are? Okay, good. Yes?
I mean, I would have thought the spying mission would be to strategize, to see how best to conquer the land, to make a plan to go here or go there, because that's their weak spot, as opposed to judge the land. These seem more like judgments as opposed to strategizing for success.
Meaning Moshe's instructions are less about strategy and more about judgment? Why? It says, look, see, are the people...
Is it bad? Is it...
Are the people strong or weak? Are there many? How many people are there? If you're going to build a strategy, you need to know. Is it a huge army or is it a small army? Are the cities fortified or is everyone sitting in open areas that we could easily attack? And is the land... Why? And if you're going to wage war against 7 nations, don't you think it's important to know, if there's a lot of fruit or a little fruit and what the quality of the fruit is going to be?
But look for their weak spots as opposed to are they strong or are they weak? It just seems like it's not kind of a war planning. It's more just a judgment.
Okay, he's saying Moshe's focus seems to be on the wrong thing. He's saying
not to be critical of Moshe, but that's
okay.
How I read it.
I see that to collect information, and Moshe will decide what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes.
Based on these questions, the Meraglim didn't do anything wrong. They answered these questions truthfully based on what they saw. The issue arises is how it was interpreted afterwards.
Okay, so regretfully, we're not going to be able to get that far. But you're right. You're right that the correct logical thing to do is to then take their answers and compare. Are they answering all the questions? Are they answering it to say in the way that are they giving all the information? Are they giving any kind of slanted information, or are they just reporting fact of what they saw? Are they adding any kind of interpretation? And even if they are adding interpretation, is that a problem or not? Or is the issue that later on, after they gave a report and they saw people's response, then all that is very significant, and there's a lot to see there. Regretfully, we won't be able to. But you're right that that's a logical next step. There is something a little more subtle in the language of these psukim that I'm wondering if someone noticed. Yes?
So I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but it's very ambiguous, and there's no... again, it's all judgment calls, and there could be some cities that are fortified, some could not be fortified. There's no real direction there. It's a very ambiguous command by Moses, and the spies, they may be right to say one thing, they're right to say
right. What he's saying is he's leaving way too much room for interpretation.
For interpretation, stereotypes,
right.
Generalizations, right?
Right. Generalizations. Like, are they strong or are they weak? Well, I'm talking about there's 7 nations there.
Strong.
It's like okay. There's something. It has to do with several of your questions, but the Midrash picks up on something even more subtle, which is the phrase. There's a phrase that repeats itself over and over throughout these verses. Anyone see it? Problem is, you won't see it in the English because the translation is bad. In the Hebrew, the phrase "Ma haaretz," what is the land? It appears over and over again. In 18, and see the land, what it is. Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak, few or many? And what is the land in which they dwell, good or bad? Are the towns they live in open or fortified? And what is the land? Is it, what's the word you used before? Fertile or lean?
That's our school's words, but...
Yes. Is there a tree, literally, is there a tree in it? Hayesh ba et, is a tree in it or not? Okay, you see here, the Midrash picks up on this phrase. Again, you see it in the Hebrew. Look at the beginning of the verse, of each verse, in Hebrew. Uritem et haaretz, mahi. Verse 19, Uma haaretz. Verse 20, Uma haaretz. Right? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
From the beginning, we see that Hashem tells to Moshe, send on Hashem vayaturu. Is there a difference between latur or just maya?
What do you mean?
Latur is from the tayar.
So you're right. It's a very important question. We a lot of times we use
the question is maya.
Right. We use. No, you're right. You're right. What you're asking now is a much bigger question, a much more basic question, which we didn't talk about and we're not going to be able to. Which is, it says we call them meraglim, we call them spies, but that's not what they're initially called. They're called latur. So latur, even though it sounds like the word tourist, latur and tourist, latur. What? Right, that's not exactly what it means, but for instance, if you were to compare it to the next time that spies are sent with Yeshua, over there the noun that's used is meraglim.
Right.
Okay, and we actually spoke about this 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was with the Malbim. I don't remember. 4 years ago, where when Yeshua wanted to send spies, he sent 2. And it says he sent meraglim cheresh secretly. Okay? And it doesn't tell us what their names are. What their names are. Those are spies. No one knows who they are. It's 2 people going secretly. You know what is not so secret? Sending 12 people who are the most prominent people in their tribes and telling us each one's name, and they're not even called spies. And it doesn't say anywhere they did it, and it doesn't say anywhere they did anything secretive.
It's just a delegation.
So right, so there are those interpretations that say this is more of a delegation than a covert operation. But be that as it may, for our purposes right now it doesn't make a difference. Which is, the focus of the Midrash is these people's personalities. These people, however whatever their mission exactly was, these were people who were distinguished. These are people who are righteous. These are people who are worthy, who chose to be fools, and we don't know yet why. Okay, enter the second Midrash.
Can I have something?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I think all the point here is that they sent to give information and they came with a conclusion. This is a whole problem.
They came with a conclusion. Again, for that we would have to look at each. I'm not sure that's true. If we were to look at the verses, the first report they gave is very factual. But wait, and after Yehoshua says, or Kalev says, if we were to jump ahead a little bit, they come and give a dry report of what they saw with no personal opinion. The people start murmuring and they get a little scared. Kalev stands up and says, don't worry, we can handle it. And then after Kalev is the first one who breaks ranks as far as giving an opinion, they say, well, if we're talking about personal opinions, then we think we can't. And then they start to slander. And then they start saying, all the people there are giants and the land eats its people and so on and so forth. But wait, I want us to see the second Midrash. Says the Midrash, and see the land. 3 times he said to them, who's he? Moshe said to them, and what is the land? Why the first time, and you shall see? So it's going to give an explanation to what Moshe meant when he said about each of the 3 times, see the land. So why the first time, and you shall see the land? He said to them, look at the land of Israel. There are lands that raise strong/brave. It's in Hebrew it's gibor. Gibor can either be strong or brave. There are lands that raise strong or brave and brave people, and lands that raise weak ones. Sorry for the misspelling. There are lands that raise large populations and others that deplete populations. That is what he commanded them, and the people who dwell in it, strong or weak, few or many. Bamidbar 13:19. And what is the land in which he sits? From where do you know their strength? If they dwell in open cities, they are strong, brave, and trust in their strength. And if they dwell in walled cities, they are weak and weak of heart. And then now the third one. And what is the land? Is it heavy or is it plentiful or is it lean? Are her fruits light or heavy? He told them, look at its rocks and earth. If they are large and strong, the fruits are heavy. If they are like pottery, like they snap, like the rocks and the dirt of the land is like pottery that it can snap very easily, meaning the fruits, are light and skinny and lean. Okay. So we had a question, which is, the truth is this is going to answer several of our questions. What do you guys think the Midrash is doing here? What is the emphasis on the land?
Is what the potential of the land is?
Perfect. Excellent. It's saying the Meraglim were not sent to go and evaluate the actual people. They were sent to see the land, evaluate the land, and come back with a report about the land. And everything they saw, Moshe says to them, is just understand how it reflects upon the land. I'm not sending you. We're not actually interested in the people. We're not actually interested in the cities. The people of the land reflect the land. The character of the people of the land reflect the land. I'm sending you. You are going, as far as you're concerned, you're going to an empty land. That land was promised to us by Hashem. It was designated to us by Hashem. We're not sending you there to develop strategy. We don't need strategy. Again, this Midrash, I'm not talking about that. Many other interpretations that say the absolute opposite. That say that yes, we were told to develop a strategy because we're going to go into the land of Israel and then we have to be active and we no longer can rely on God, etc., etc. Yeah. That is not what this Midrash is doing. This Midrash is taking a very different direction. It's saying they were told to go and evaluate the land, but they got distracted. They were foolish. They got carried away, or they got distracted. Here's the thing. Moshe is saying to them, when you see a land that has very many people and very strong people who are very confident and brave, you have two options of how to respond. One, to freak out. And the other is what? Is what? Yes, it's to be happy. Wow, we could be like that too. Meaning we could become plenty. Now the difference is to what degree you feel that it is your land. Meaning it's a question of, do you look at the world of, do you restrict yourself to looking at reality as it is? Or do you allow yourself to see deeper into the roots of the reality, and therefore to be able to see, as Paul said, potential? Do you restrict your vision? Do you restrict your vision to the limitations of the reality in front of you? Or are you able to look past the restrictions of the physical reality to see vision? Because the truth is, what Moshe Meaning, and you would think, and now we understand that if that was their mission, to be able to look at the powerful nation and say, wow, this land is great. Look at what kind of, meaning it's looking at, it's unbelievable. It's looking at the enemy that you're supposed to go in and annihilate, and looking at them and saying, wow, this is amazing. Look how big and strong they are. This land is great. It's very, very complicated what Moshe is asking them to do. Look at your enemy, but don't see your enemy. It's as if, the truth is, it's not just difficult. It requires a certain, I'm not even sure what word to use. Look at your enemy, but don't see your enemy. See the roots of his existence and understand and connect to that level. Don't look. Right, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, effectively, it's almost like looking at the people as the fruits of the land. They told how big the fruits were.
Wow.
So similarly, the people.
Absolutely. I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. You're right. That's what it is. The people living in the land are one of the products of the land. And the truth is, this is actually a very common concept, especially in medieval thought, that in today's day and age, it would be difficult for us to understand this and accept this for a variety of reasons. Anywhere from the fact that, we live in an era of mass immigration. We're living already a few hundred years after, mass immigration. And therefore the idea that a people and a land can be intertwined like land and its produce is something that is strange to us. But in the world of Midrash, and even in the world of the medieval philosophers, the idea that man and culture are, among other things, a product of the land, of the soil, of the climate, that's already a lot easier. That we can understand. That is easy for all of us from the different places from which we grew up and lived and we visited, that there is a certain correlation between the climate and personalities of and cultures that develop. That I think is easy to understand, but the Midrash is going much deeper than that. And it could also be a simpler understanding of: is it a land that lends itself to a large population? Meaning, meaning, what are the things that go into allowing a land or allowing a people to grow and be prosperous and strong and brave and healthy in a land? There could be physical aspects of the land. It's how easy it is to defend, how defendable it is. How is there easy access to resources, etc., etc. But we now understand more so why there was a need for people who were righteous and who have great stature to be able to do this complicated thing, to see the enemy and not only not be scared, but be able to see the enemy, as you said, Paul, as the fruit of the land, and therefore be encouraged by it. Now again, there's something also very cynical about this, and I know this. And if I were someone with very different political inclinations than I am, I would say, you're not looking at these people as people.
Dehumanizing.
You're completely dehumanizing them, and I would say yes. Meaning, right now the discussion is not annihilating, not annihilating. The Torah talks about that later, and the Torah does not have an issue with annihilating the nations in the land of Israel at the time for whatever reason, not for now. But it's saying, when they went and they looked at the land, and they were told, and Moshe was very specific to them, look at the land. What kind of people dwell in it? What kind of cities? What kind of setup of living is there in the land? Look at the land. Does it have trees? Does it have, etc., etc.? And they made themselves into fools by restricting themselves to what they were looking at, and not to what they were looking at meant.
So it was superficial.
Yes.
To some extent.
Yes.
So now I have to ask another question.
Yes.
But you're not Moshe. We are not 12 Nesim of the tribes. You just now explained exactly what they were supposed to look at. We understand. So how come Moshe couldn't explain them?
He did.
And how come they didn't understand?
Oh wait, meaning. Oh wait, you're saying why didn't Moshe spell it out the way I did?
Yes.
You say, meaning you're asking on the Midrash. According to the Midrash,
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
So there's always a difficulty in asking a question on the Midrash for a variety of reasons. I'm going to give right now the simplest answer I can think of. Maybe Moshe didn't think he needed to, meaning get this explicit. He said, the Midrash is saying, Moshe said, okay guys, listen, I'm sending you with a very specific mission. Evaluate the land. What is the land? Does it have a lot of people or a little people or a few people? Does it have brave, strong people or does it have weak people? Look at the land. Does this land lend itself to and necessitate walled cities, or does this land not necessitate walled cities and is defendable even without walled cities? Look at the land. Does it give plentiful fruit or lean fruit? That's what Moshe said. He didn't. Maybe again, it's always difficult to kind of answer a question for the Midrash, but the reason you're asking a question is because they failed. It's like, well, why wasn't he more explicit?
And then when they came back and they said what they said, he was supposed to stand before people and say, listen, that's true, the people are strong, they're brave, they're the Eretz Ochelet Tashmeh, everything is fine, but you have to understand, this is the rule, these people
No, but it's too late. He's
the leader, I have to speak to
No, it's too late. Once they spoke in front of the entire nation, and they put the people's focus on the superficial aspect of the land. That the focus of the land is who's living there. I'll get a little political again. Their focus was on who's living there. Are the people living there strong or weak? And Moshe was trying to say to them, listen, I don't care who's living there. The only purpose there is for you to look at the people who are living there is to understand how this land is going to affect us. We don't care about the people. Moshe is saying, I care about the land. One of the ways in which evaluate the land is to look at the people who happen to be living there right now, and from that to learn about the quality of the land and the type of living that it provides. And this required them to be able to be people who look beyond the world of the revealed eye, and to want to look. And it's not easy. I mean, we all have difficulty. We all focus, I think, sometimes on the wrong, especially when it comes to Israel today. We focus on the wrong things. We focus on the superficial. These people are here. These people are strong. And Moshe is saying, again, right now he's not talking about the war aspect at all. He's saying, when you see strong, brave, plenty people in the land of Israel, you could take this as something that will scare you off from the people, or this could strengthen your connection to the land by saying it's a completely upside down, reverse way of looking at the people who are living in the land of Israel. Yes, Alex.
this Midrash doesn't make sense to me, because then what is the point of sending them? Like, if you go by the opinion that they're sent to actually spy out, do the military strategy, that makes more sense. But here, he's sending them at this stage of the game where they don't need to settle the land, they don't need to know whether they need to use this kind of seed to put in the ground or the other seed. They're going in, no matter what. So what's the point of knowing, whether the land gives that kind of fruit or this kind of fruit, or you need to fortify the seed or not? Doesn't
unless it's just meant to encourage the people.
So this is a very special land. It's a propaganda mission.
Yeah.
It's. I would agree with that. Again, the Midrash doesn't say it, and the truth is, the Torah itself doesn't say anywhere why they're being sent. It doesn't say anywhere, and therefore it just seems to be go, evaluate the land, come back and report. So it seems to be, it's almost, again, the Midrash doesn't say this, and the Torah doesn't say this, but there seems to be, to me, the simplest answer, propaganda, meaning let's get everyone excited. That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Maybe it tries to teach us that there's a grave mistake for us. That because of that, actually, what we have now.
That I agree, but the question. Are you saying they were sent in order for us to learn the message of their failure?
Yeah.
Okay, they're definitely
because God did know what will be outcome of that.
Okay, that takes us into a whole other theological discussion. Yes.
Well, actually, I was kind of going that way, that maybe Hashem knew they weren't ready, because nobody asked to go check out the land before. He sent them, so maybe Hashem wanted this to happen like this, so that they could stay in the desert for 40 years to really be ready to get Israel. It was all part of a bigger plan.
Very much could be, but usually that's an explanation we give after the sin takes place. We say, okay, now that the sin has taken place, what was its purpose? We usually stay away from saying it beforehand. You understand what I mean? After the bad thing has happened, we say, well, if the bad thing happened, there must be some greater meaning to it. Oh, this serves a much bigger purpose, which is that the Jewish people will be more prepared to go into the land, conquer it, etc. So it's usually an after-the-fact type of analysis, because otherwise it's more of a theological discussion. Otherwise, it becomes, okay, well, I'll sin, and there must, and if I'll sin, and it's okay because I can't sin without God, allowing me to. So if I'm going to sin, there must be purpose for it. So we usually use it more as a rationalization after the fact that something already happened, and not as something, why are they being sent? Oh, in order, so when they sin and fail, we'll be able to learn something from them.
So on that point,
that would be the worst type of entrapment.
On the point of what precipitated, and maybe you talked about this at the beginning of the class, but when Hashem says to Moshe, send the people, if you please, was that because someone had asked Hashem to send? We only spoke about it at the beginning to the point where we said we're not going to speak about it, but we said that yes. No, there's a lot of ambiguity because in Sefer Dvarim, when it talks about the sin of the spies, it says, in Bamidbar, Dvarim, whatever, it says that the Jewish people came to Moshe saying, we want to send people ahead of us. Right, that's what I...
Whereas over here, there's many attempts to reconcile the two. Is one accurate, and the one is an interpretation? Is it's two stages of the same exact story, but each telling of the story is telling one stage of it, and if so, why? A lot of interpretations to it.
I'm just suggesting if we went with that the people were asking to, then I guess what Moshe is trying to do with his instruction is to try and focus them on the land and its wonders, because they want to go anyway, and so that's what he's trying to direct them.
Very much could be.
As clearly as he could.
Very much could be. So I'll just kind of summarize from a perspective of the methodology of Midrash, we've met two things. One is the use of the word anashim, or when it isn't necessary, and that this is a recurring theme, and the repetition of a single phrase, ma'aretz, 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 the repetition of a single phrase, and using that as the tool through which to interpret everything else happening in those verses. So even though the verses go on to say, are the people strong or weak, they have built cities or not built cities, the fact that ma'aretz becomes the phrase that repeats itself over and over and over kind of refocuses everything on saying that is the main thread, that is the main topic of this. So identifying a repetitive phrase and understanding that it becomes the focal point of everything else happening. From a kind of big picture message, I think we saw three things here. One, even people who are very intelligent, very wise, and even righteous, there's, for some reason, when many times, specifically people who are wise, intelligent, when it comes to the land of Israel, they can become complete fools. Okay? And so that's one thing that we saw. And the other thing that a person can choose what to look at, in general in life, obviously, but specifically when it comes to geopolitical things and things to do with the land of Israel and the Jewish people, a person can choose to restrict themselves to the world of, the phenomena that is happening, the physical phenomena that is happening right now in front of their eyes. And according to the Midrash, that is a choice of that turns a person into a fool, or to look at these events and try to look past them or within them to the root causes of them on a cultural level, not when one person does something. What is the behavior of a nation or of nations? What does that reflect about this location? And the last point, that the Midrash goes under the assumption or with this understanding that there is an actual, almost like live connection between the land and the people living on it, and that the people and their culture and their bravery and their numbers and their psychology and all kinds of other things, they are influenced by the land itself. And these are all points which I think deserve a lot of reflection, and I think that it could be applied in many, many different ways to things that we see around us today. But that's the extent to which I'm going to get political. Okay. Everyone have a Shavua Tov.
Thank you. Shavua Tov.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Shavua Tov.